Good afternoon. We come together on this Maundy Thursday. We remember Jesus' last meal with his friends. And so today we will hear from the last three of Jesus' disciples and then from Jesus. So we continue in the Gospel of Matthew. Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and says, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. On the first day of the unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12. While they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began saying to him and to one another, "Surely not I, Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him. But woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it. He gave it to his disciples and said, "Take and eat, this is my body." And then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for the many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never again drink of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." And when they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." I am John, the beloved disciple. Beloved. Loved by Jesus. Loved by the one who was in the beginning with God. Loved by the one who is greater than all of us. And yet he washes our feet, setting us an example of servility and humility. You might think that because Jesus calls me his beloved disciple that I have reason to be proud. I have learned that the opposite is true. I once thought that I might hold a place of power and prestige in his kingdom, but he has shown me over and over and over that the war he wages is a spiritual battle. He reaches out to the needy, to the poor. He does not seek out the rich and the powerful. He eats in the homes of the sinners and of the common people, not the elite. I have seen him equally befriend a well-known Pharisee and a prostitute, forgiving both. God has sent his Son because he loved the world, the lowly, me, so much that he does not want any of us to perish, but he wants us to have everlasting life. This Jesus, he is the way, the truth. He is life. And even though we are his closest friends and followers, I think we truly don't understand the depth of his love. I believe he would give his life for mine, so how could I not do the same? Will my pride cause me to stumble? Will I betray him? Could I betray him? Is it I, Jesus? Is it? Is it me? My name is Simon Peter. One day, my partners and I, we were cleaning our nets after a long, hard night of fishing. We were tired and discouraged. We had nothing to show for our efforts. Jesus was preaching, as usual, to the many people who followed him from here and there, listening to his every word. He asked if he could sit in my boat. I rowed him out so his voice would carry. And when he had finished teaching, he asked me to row out a little farther and throw my nets in the water again. I told him it was pointless. We had worked all night and we caught nothing. But I did as he asked, and then, so many fish. The nets broke trying to pull them in. So many fish, we filled both of our boats until they began to sink under the weight of them. I fell down on my knees before the Lord, feeling sinful and faithless in his holy presence. And then he tells me I would no longer catch these fish, but I would catch men. I didn't understand, but I left my boats, my fish, my livelihood. I left everything to follow Jesus, and I have never looked back. Tonight he tells us that one of these 12, his faithful disciples, will betray him. I vainly promised to follow him even to death. But he looked into my eyes and he said that before the rooster crows, I will deny him 3 times. Deny him. Am I not the rock? Could I lose my Lord? Could I lose my friend because I am not strong enough to be faithful? Is it I, Jesus? Is it me? I am Judas Iscariot. I'm the treasurer for this group. I have followed Jesus, but I am growing tired of his reluctance to take a stand against our oppressors. I believe he is who he says he is, but why would God send the Messiah for this? To wash feet? to serve bread? I don't need a spiritual king. We need a political king. We need someone who can rise up and overthrow these Roman tyrants. Thousands of people follow him over the mountainsides, across the rivers to hear him speak. Surely he can put together an army in no time. Something must be done to force him to make his move, to lead us to victory, to establish the new kingdom. The betrayer among us, indeed. All these men, they look at one another suspiciously, wondering, guessing, accusing. They look inward. They ponder their own motivations. But why do they sit here like sheep waiting for a shepherd? Something must be done. Someone must do something. Well, I have. Tonight, the elders and the chief priests, they will help me, help him usher in his promised kingdom. History will thank me for this. Oh, yes. Someone has betrayed him. Perhaps all of us will do so before this night is over. Is it I, Master? Lastly, we hear from Jesus. As he sits at the table and he looks at his friends, his disciples. Bartholomew was faithful to the continued preaching of my message, and he took a copy of Matthew's gospel into India and part of what is now Russia. He was martyred for preaching and zealously sharing his faith. James the Lesser, he also fell at the hands of his enemies, and he became a martyr by stoning. Some of his bones and relics are preserved to this day. They're buried in Constantinople under the Church of the Holy Apostles. Andrew became a fruitful servant. He was a missionary. He shared the gospel in Scythia, which is southern Russia, by the Black Sea. His ministry also included Greece and Ephesus. In the end, he was crucified and he was stoned on a cross shaped like an X. Peter, the rock. He, as well as all the disciples, denied me. But he was repentant. He became a bold and fruitful evangelist. On that day of Pentecost, when he was filled with the Holy Spirit, he became a spokesman and he preached the gospel. Thousands were saved. He was martyred in Rome. on Vatican Hill by Nero. He was crucified upside down because he felt he was not worthy to be crucified in the same way that I was. James, the son of Zebedee, of whom I said, indeed, you will drink the cup that I drink of. He became the first of my disciples to be martyred. He was beheaded by King Herod, and before his death, he was a faithful minister of the gospel, taking the message to many places, including Spain. Thomas, the one they accuse of having doubt, he went on to become one of the most fruitful of all of my disciples. He traveled to Babylon and he established churches there. And then he went to India where multitudes were converted. To this day, the work of Thomas is still recognized and continues in India. Thomas was martyred by a lance that was thrust through him. Philip, he also was an active missionary, spreading the gospel to Scythia, where he preached for 20 years. He traveled to Phrygia, where the priests of pagan gods crucified him, and while he was on the cross, they stoned him to death. He died praying for his enemies and tormentors, as I did. Matthew, he wrote the gospel that opens up the New Testament, the new covenant, the promise of God. He spent most of his life ministering to the Hebrews in Palestine. And from there he went to Ethiopia, northern Greece, Syria, Persia, where he was martyred for serving me. Simon the Zealot, he spread the gospel into Egypt, Cyrene, Africa, and even Great Britain. His life too was ended by being martyred when he was crucified in Great Britain. Thaddeus, he was a faithful disciple. He took my message into Syria, into Arabia, into Mesopotamia and Persia. Eventually, he was martyred in Syria. John, my beloved. John was banished by the Roman authorities to the Greek island of Patmos, where he wrote the book of Revelation. John was the youngest of my disciples, and he was the last survivor. He lived to an old age, dying in his bed. And Judas. Judas. You have said that it is so. Go quickly and do what you must do. Judas regretted what he did. He took his own life in torment of mind after his betrayal. My friends, my disciples, it is late. Let us go now to the garden and pray.